From the very start of our relationship, I was generally a more cautious and timid person, and she was more adventurous and outgoing. One example of this would be our first kiss, and it happened to be my very first kiss. I gave her a ring that I saw in some store, and I thought she would like it because she had a fascination and a love for elephants, and the ring contained a small line of elephants that were circling around with their trunks grabbing onto the next one's tail. So after I gave this to her, I told her that I would really like to kiss her, and she replied that she also wanted to kiss me. And after a short pause, she realized I was just too nervous and shy to make it happen, so she ended up taking the initiative. And the following few months were some of the best of my life so far. The fortified walls that surrounded her heart slowly started to crumble as we got closer and closer to each other. It was like living a dream every time I saw her. It was an indescribable feeling of pleasure, excitement, happiness, and love. And as I look back on our relationship, I realized that the times where I was happiest were the times that we just sat around and talked. We found an unsurpassed enjoyment in each other's presence, and we soon became almost inseparable. And at this point, I began to lose contact with some of my friends and unintentionally began to drift away from them. But at the time, this really didn't bother me much because I was in such a state of ecstasy when I was with her that being with other people just generally lost its appeal. And we spent more and more time with each other to the point that I saw her for several hours a day, every day. And she soon became the most significant part of my life and my greatest source of pleasure. Our relationship became more intense and intimate as we spent an increasing amount of time together. But all this time together eventually became our downfall. The little things that we used to silently forgive each other for suddenly became major problems that we had to deal with. I guess it was a buildup of subconsciously repressed emotions that just seemed to boil over from time to time. And most of the time we dealt with these issues rather poorly by yelling at each other and hurting each other mentally, emotionally, and physically. Our emotions took control and our actions became more and more foolish as our anger and annoyance with each other became heightened. But despite all the stress and all the pain, I always wanted to see her. During our worst fights, when I felt nothing but hatred for her, she would storm off and I would find myself missing her. I still wanted to be with her and I still loved her, even though at the same time my raging emotions were pushing her away. A lot of times our fights began with insignificant little things, and our negative reactions to each other's reactions just fed the fire of hostility until eventually we couldn't stand each other's presence any longer. The same person that I fell so deeply in love with, whose very presence gave me indescribable joy, became almost unbearable to be with. And just being with her put me in a sour mood, but there was always something somewhere inside me that still wanted to be with her, and I still loved her deeply. And I knew she felt the same way. So it's strange looking back on our journey through life. What's changed and what hasn't changed, the extreme highs and lows of our relationship. I've spent the best and worst times of my life with this girl. I was with her for 5 years, and that seems like a really long time since I'm only 21 years old. And she knows and she cares for me more than anybody else, but here I find myself alone, a victim of my own cruelty and violent temper, and I'm struggling with what feels like an empty existence, and I am scared, and I'm uncertain of the future, and I feel like I'm aimlessly searching for something to fill this void somewhere inside of me.